everybody. My name is Saskia Suliksana and I'm part of Professor Pasco's Masterclass Black Box 2020, Towards an Exhibition. For this project, I'll be looking at the processes at work in the object of the heirloom. The object's networks, processing meaning through the family heirloom. We all probably have something lying around that reminds us of somebody we've lost. It might be a ring or a piece of furniture or even a recipe. I thought it would be interesting to take a closer look at the way these heirloom objects interact with our sense of self. For this, I'll be looking at Bruno Latour's actor network theory, as well as incorporate some of Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari's ideas about assemblage. Last week, I suddenly found myself yearning for an Indonesian dish that my grandmother used to make. Her unrivaled soto ayam was always a sign of an event, a family gathering, and my memory of it is intermixed with the scent of my grandmother's home and the sounds of her blue koi fish china clinking to the eager touch of our spoons. Although she's been gone for some time now, her recipes remain in an online archive of scanned, handwritten notes accessible only to family members. I regard this archive and the recipe itself as family heirlooms, something that my grandmother bestowed upon us, and through its interaction will continue to remind me of both her and our shared heritage and has become embedded in my sense of self. It made me wonder what it means to gain insight into the self simply from something that was transferred to you by others. Does the heirloom maintain a steady significance throughout this transaction? And what is the relationship between material and semiotic content of the heirloom object? This made me understand the heirloom as something of a black box. My grandmother may have put the input in, as she wrote ingredients and instructions on a small note and kept it for us as a keepsake. But how did the recipe, its cultural and perhaps colonial connotations resonate with her? Additionally, how do I, as current custodian, derive meaning from it or add meaning to it? The way we curate and keepsake family heirlooms and the intergenerational narrative that coincides with it reinforces the family's sense of self. Likewise, it could be said that the construct of the heirloom, insofar that it is part of the act of inheritance, seems to imply the possibility and likelihood of a subsequent passing on, in that it may continue to be passed on to another inheritor. The significance of the heirloom object, then, transforms as it interacts, as well as transforms that with which it interacts. This system of inheritance could be understood through Bruno Latour's actor network theory. According to ANT, we act on things, but things also act on us. Simply put, ANT is the idea that action is distributed among actors and non-human actors called actants. It is a material semiotic way of looking at things that maps how technologies and material objects participate in everyday life. Key to our understanding of the heirloom here is the notion of translation. ANT looks at translation as a process that allows a network to be represented by a single entity, which can in itself be an individual or another network. If we consider the process of inheritance as a continual translation of the heirloom, then the heirloom could be understood as the entity that represents the lineage, or rather, it both represents and exists as a node of intertwined actants. Following the idea of the heirloom as an intersection of actants, the object could also be understood as assemblage. Assemblage is an ontological framework proposed by Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari, which involves a continual process of emergence and becoming, and it is composed of a multiplicity of unstable organic and non-organic elements, each invested with the capacity to transform the whole. It lets us move beyond the construct of dualistic modes of perception, so that we can focus on the present as emergent. From the Deleuze-Guattarian idea of the rhizomatic structure, assemblage is not composed of a single linear narrative. Rather, the rhizome reveals connections that, much like Latour's ANT, demonstrate multiple entryways that shape the assemblage's significance. Regarding my grandmother's recipe, it is difficult and maybe even impossible to grasp how many points of entry can be distinguished. The dish has come to represent a long list of interconnectedness, such as hints of Dutch colonialism as well as the warmth associated with a family gathering. The heirloom shifts meaning as its network of signification grows and entangles an obscure system of making meaning. I've curated 3 heirloom objects to illustrate the entangled network of assemblage at work. In his biography, The Hare with Amber Eyes, A Family's Century of Art and Loss, Edmund de Waal seeks out his family history by retracing the journey of a collection of 260 called Netsuke. The collection, in itself a material assemblage of 264 entities, functions as the black box through which de Waal hopes to retrieve the input of his ancestors, hoping to find further understanding of the self. Another work I would like to draw your attention to is Orhan Pamuk's The Museum of Innocence. This is both the title to his 2008 novel as well as the name of the actual museum he opened in 2012 in Istanbul. The novel's narrator, Kemal, falls madly in love with his distant cousin called Fujun. and begins to feverishly collect all kinds of objects that have been in contact with her. Pamuk understands that objects create narratives. The objects collected in 83 cabinets displayed in the Museum of Innocence function as portals to moments that would connote the overall significance of their being together. An accumulation of cabinets of curiosity, the Museum of Innocence is an articulate curation of grouped objects that may or may not entangle Kamal, Fujun, and their love affair. Finally, I will place Gustav Klimt's The Portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer I in my Museum of Heirloom Objects. This painting was once commissioned by a Jewish businessman, but was seized under the Nazi regime. After years of legal battle, the heir, Maria Altmann, succeeded in reclaiming the family heirloom. This painting amassed meaning as it traveled semiotic wavelengths. What networks are inherent to the object, and how should we understand the entangled webbing between these networks? Can we untangle the assemblage that is the portrait of Adele? Each of these works shows the heirloom object as an intricate assemblage of meaning that reworks and is reworked by the networks it is part of. By departing from our shared object of observation, the black box, I find myself intrigued by the reworkings of the shared sense of self that is construed by the heirloom object, as well as the assemblage of significance that is inherent to the object itself. I think that A&T and the concept of assemblage provide insight into the obscure networks inherent to the heirloom object. And through this reading, I hope to contribute in some way to our understanding of black box processing. Thank you so much for watching this video.